Human notices alien girl avoiding the sky, but human sees a shape following only her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole first noticed the shape on a quiet night shift when the orbital station hummed around him, a low, steady vibration that settled into his bones. Frost traced thin white veins across the inspection window, catching the glow of the planet below. He leaned closer, tapping the screen to sharpen the optical feed. There, just above the city dome, something drifted, a soft silhouette suspended in the upper haze. Not moving with the wind, not tumbling like debris, just keeping pace. Ethan zoomed in further. The city lights shimmered, distorted faintly by the dome's curvature. A lone figure stepped out of a late-night cafe, her silver hair reflecting the neon signs like strands of cold starlight. She kept her head lowered, shoulders drawn tight, as if the sky itself carried weight. And the shape above, whatever it was, adjusted smoothly, holding position directly over her. Ethan blinked hard. His console didn't show any registered aircraft, drones, or weather balloons. Nothing that matched that outline. He cycled through filters. Infrared, thermal, radar scatter. The silhouette stayed faint, nearly translucent, like a shadow with no owner. He whispered, "What are you?" The station lights flickered as the cooling units kicked in. Ethan rubbed his jaw, aware of the old familiarity of confusion tightening in his chest. Back when he was 12, he'd watched a transport fall out of the sky, breaking apart like embers. The memory taught him to distrust anything unexplained above the ground. But this felt different. This felt intentional. He keyed in a timestamp and saved the feed. The system responded with a soft chirp, too cheerful for what he'd just witnessed. He switched back to the live view. The girl had already disappeared under a balcony awning, safely tucked away from the open sky, and the shape above her dimmed, almost as if settling into stillness, waiting. Ethan sat back in his chair, the metal cold against his spine. He told himself it was probably a glitch, a refraction anomaly, something routine. But the knot in his stomach insisted otherwise. Shapes don't wait. Shadows don't choose. And whatever was up there, it was following her, not the city, not the weather, not him. Just her. The console chimed again, reminding him of the next mandatory sweep, but Ethan didn't move for a moment. He stayed still, staring at the quiet planet below, unaware that tonight was the first thread in a story he would not be able to walk away from. When Ethan's shift ended, station dawn was a muted blend of soft amber lights warming along the corridors. He moved through the quiet walkway with his mind looping the same image, that faint silhouette poised above the girl who refused to look at the sky. Most anomalies faded with explanation. This one clung to him. By midday he was planet-side, boots touching the smooth pavement of the dome city. The air was crisp, scrubbed clean by filtration systems that hummed softly behind the walls. People passed with the calm rhythm of routine, unaware of anything strange above them. Ethan kept glancing upward out of habit, but the dome's glassy curve revealed nothing except pale afternoon clouds drifting beyond the shield. Maybe the shape only showed itself at night, or only to him. He shook off the thought. He had work to do. His assignment was to recalibrate a weather sensor mounted near the same cafe he had seen from orbit. The place was smaller than he expected, warmed by quiet lights and the smell of ground spices. As he approached, he spotted her again. The girl with silver hair. She stepped out, carrying a tray of empty cups toward a recycling unit, every motion careful, practiced. She did not look up even when a flock of delivery drones zipped overhead, casting brief shadows over the walkway. She moved closer to the wall, waiting for the sky to clear. Ethan pretended to focus on the open panel of the sensor, but he watched from the corner of his eye. When the last drone faded, she finally exhaled, her shoulders easing just a fraction. He wondered how long she had lived like that, measuring each step by what hovered above her. A soft breeze drifted through the corridor, brushing her hair, and he heard her voice for the first time when her tray slipped slightly. "It is fine," she murmured to herself, steadying it. The words carried a tremor, small but real. Ethan closed the panel and turned. "Excuse me," he said gently, giving her plenty of space so she would not startle. "Do you work here?" She blinked, guarded but polite. "Yes. Can I help you?" Her tone was formal, almost rehearsed. Her eyes remained focused on his chest and never drifted above it. Up close, her appearance was striking. Soft violet skin, eyes like polished silver, hair that caught the light in shifting shades. She looked young, but something in her posture felt older, like she had learned to brace herself against things no one else could see. Ethan gestured toward the rooftop sensor. "I am with Sky Service. I am just checking equipment. I saw you last night when I was on shift upstairs." Her expression shifted, not fearful exactly, but alert. "People do not usually notice me from up there." "I notice things," Ethan said quietly. He almost told her about the shape, but something held him back. Instead, he added, "It looked like you were in a hurry to get indoors." She stiffened, and the small tremor in her hand returned. "It is safer inside. That is all." She turned slightly, angling her body away from the transparent portion of the dome where the sky poured through like a bright tide. A group of customers stepped out of the cafe behind her, and reflexively, she moved under the awning, shielding herself from the open view overhead. Ethan saw it clearly now. This was not preference. This was instinct. Something had taught her not to trust the sky. He offered a small nod, not pushing. "I am Ethan," he said. She hesitated, then replied, "Lyra." The name fit her in a way he could not explain. She excused herself, stepping back into the cafe, and her silver hair vanished behind the door. Ethan looked up at the dome again, the glass reflecting faint outlines of passing clouds. Nothing unusual. No shape, no shadow. But his pulse told him the truth. It was still there somewhere, waiting for night to fall, waiting for her. And now he had seen Lyra up close, fear stitched quietly into her every movement. He understood something he had not. Last night, whatever followed her from the sky was not finished. Evening settled slowly over the domed city, the artificial lights warming to a soft golden hue as Ethan wrapped up the last diagnostics on the weather console. He tried to focus on the data, but his mind kept circling back to Lyra, to the way she hugged the shade as if sunlight carried weight, to the way her voice trembled when sky was mentioned. When the cafe closed for the night, he found himself nearby, lingering without a reason that made any sense on paper. A few customers drifted out, heading toward transit pods. Lyra emerged last, locking the door with careful motions. She stood beneath the awning, silver hair muted in the gentle glow. It was only when the walkway cleared that she stepped into the open. Ethan noticed how her gaze swept the ground first, then the nearby buildings, but never upward. Not even a glance. He approached slowly so she would hear him. "Long day?" he asked. Lyra turned, her expression cautious but softer than earlier. "It was steady," she said. "People talk more at night. Some like the quiet hours." "Do you?" Ethan asked. She considered this. "I like when the city is calm," she said. "Noise makes it harder to ignore things." He felt the tug of her meaning, but did not push. Instead, he walked with her toward the central corridor where the dome eased from gold to pale blue. The streets glowed with subtle reflections, like a shallow pool of light. "You live nearby?" he asked. She nodded. "Just a few blocks." Her steps were swift, keeping to areas where balconies or overhangs gave partial cover. Each time the walkway opened wide beneath the clear dome, she hesitated for half a second before crossing, breath tight. Ethan saw the pattern now. It was not fear of falling objects or bright lights. It was the open sky itself, even through the protective glass. He tried to sound casual. "Lyra, can I ask you something?" She stopped walking, her hands folded in front of her, a gesture that disguised unease. "You may ask. I may not answer." Ethan appreciated the honesty. "Last night, when I was on shift, I was watching the dome. I saw something." A shadow moved across her expression, faint but unmistakable. "What did you see?" Her voice was quiet, almost too even. Ethan chose his words carefully. "Something above the city, high in the atmosphere." It tracked a single point, a single person. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as if steadying herself against a truth she already knew. "You should not look for things like that," she said softly. "Some things follow because they were never meant to be seen." "Lyra," Ethan said gently. "It was above you." Her breath caught, not loud, but sharp enough that he heard it. He did not move closer. He just waited. After a long moment, she opened her eyes, and the silver in them shimmered like unsettled water. People from my world carry histories, she said. Some families more than others. When I was young, my elders said our lineage was touched by the sky. A blessing, they claimed. But blessings can feel like burdens. Is that why you never look up? Ethan asked. She looked away. If something watches you, she whispered, you learn not to meet its gaze. A soft trolley hum vibrated through the corridor as a transit pod approached. Lyra stepped back into the shadow of a pillar, waiting for it to pass even though it was harmless. Ethan followed her gaze to the dome overhead. The glass looked clear, empty, quiet, but the memory of the silhouette clung to him like static. You are not alone in this, he said quietly. Lyra hesitated, her voice barely above a breath. That is what I am afraid of. The transit pod drifted away, leaving them in the settling silence. Ethan felt the weight of her words settle into his chest, grounding him with a clarity he had not expected. Something was following her. Something she had lived with for years. And tonight, for the first time, she had admitted it aloud. Ethan walked with Lyra through the quieter edge of the district, where the dome lights dimmed toward a softer blue mint to imitate early evening skies. She kept close to the buildings, steps measured, as though every open stretch required calculation. He matched her pace without comment, sensing that silence helped more than questions. A light breeze drifted through the corridor, carrying the distant hum of energy rails. Lyra paused near a small plaza bordered by tall planters and a holographic fountain that shimmered like liquid glass. The fountain cast soft reflections on her violet skin, making her seem almost part of the light. Ethan noticed her shoulders relax slightly. This spot, partially covered and shielded from wide sky views, seemed to let her breathe easier. Do you ever take a break here? He asked. She nodded once. Sometimes. It is quiet. The sky is hidden just enough. He glanced upward automatically. From this angle, the dome's curvature revealed only a narrow slice of the heavens, framed by overlapping rooftops. A design choice, perhaps created for residents who preferred enclosed spaces. Lyra moved toward a bench beneath a canopy of hanging lanterns, each one pulsing with a gentle bioluminescent glow. She rested her hands on the bench's edge, tracing the cool metal with her fingertips. When I was a child, she began softly, my family lived in a valley where storms came from above without warning. My people believed the sky chose certain individuals to protect or to test. Legends told of watchers that followed from above, silent and patient. Ethan listened, leaning lightly against a support pillar, giving her space. Was it meant to be comforting? She shook her head, a faint smile passing like a shadow. Adults said it was a gift. Children felt differently. Gifts should not feel heavy. She looked toward the narrow patch of visible dome. Even that seemed too much. Ethan felt a pull to understand more, but he kept his tone gentle. Lyra, what makes you think something might be watching you now? She hesitated, her eyes reflecting lantern light. Because it has happened before, she whispered. Not here. Not exactly. But when I left my world, something came with me. Or perhaps it never left. Ethan's pulse nudged upward, not from fear, but from clarity. She believed she was not alone under the sky. And the image he had seen from orbit matching her movements was no coincidence. Have you told anyone? He asked. No, she replied quickly. They would say it is imagination. Or superstition. She paused. Or worse, they would try to study it. There was a quiet weight to that last word, a fear of becoming an experiment instead of a person. Ethan understood more than she realized. He had seen enough bureaucratic protocols to know how easily unusual phenomena turn into case reports. He kept his voice steady. I did not tell anyone either. She looked at him, startled. He continued. I saw something and I kept it quiet because it did not feel wrong. Just unusual. And connected to you. Lyra's breath eased, as if relief trickled into her lungs. Thank you, she said. A simple phrase, but heartfelt. A soft chime echoed through the plaza as street lamps brightened. Far above, the dome's surface shifted to night mode, tinting the sky beyond into a deep navy hue. Lyra noticed and instinctively stepped closer to the bench's canopy. Ethan moved subtly to block her view of the open dome, not drawing attention to it, simply placing himself where her sight line met something steady. She exhaled, grateful. You do not have to do that, she murmured. I know, he answered. But it helps. She studied him, silver eyes softening. Why are you not afraid? Ethan considered this. Because whatever is up there has followed you for years and has not harmed you. And because fear grows stronger in silence. Talking helps. Lyra looked down, a quiet calm settling around her. Maybe, she said. The plaza lights shimmered. The dome above stayed dark and quiet. And for the first time since he had met her, Lyra did not rush to leave the open path. She lingered, steadying herself with presence rather than cover, as Ethan remained beside her, grounding her against the sky she had spent a lifetime avoiding. The following evening, Ethan returned to the same plaza, not because his schedule required it, but because something about that quiet corner felt like the safest place to meet Lyra halfway between fear and understanding. The lanterns glowed softly overhead, casting slow pulses of blue and gold across the tiles. It was a calm night, the kind where the dome glass reflected only faint stars, muted by distance. Ethan spotted Lyra before she noticed him. She was standing near the fountain again, fingers skimming just above the water's shimmering surface, as though feeling its temperature without touching it. Her posture looked lighter, less compressed by caution. When she did see him, her expression softened into something close to familiarity. You came back, she said. He shrugged lightly. I figured the sensors in this district could use another check. They tend to misbehave when the humidity shifts. Lyra raised an eyebrow. And does the humidity shift often? Tonight it does, Ethan replied, earning the smallest smile from her. She gestured toward the fountain. This place is quieter. Today, I think the city feels different when night settles in slowly. Ethan approached, keeping the fountain between them at first, letting her choose the distance. How have you been since yesterday, he asked. Lyra hesitated, then answered honestly. It felt strange to say those things out loud. Like opening a window I had kept closed for years. But it was also a relief. She moved to sit on the bench beneath the hanging lanterns, the canopy offering partial shelter from the upward view. Ethan joined her, though leaving space between them, sensing that closeness had to be earned gently. The plaza around them hummed with soft evening energy, the sound of distant footsteps, the faint vibration of transit lines, the warm breeze carrying hints of spices from nearby food stalls. A quiet moment stretched before Lyra spoke again. When I left my world, I thought I would escape the feeling that something watched me. But even in this city, under another sky, the sensation returned. She looked down at her hands resting on her lap. I trained myself to avoid looking up. If I did not see it, perhaps it would forget me. Ethan listened closely. But it never forgot, he said. Her breath trembled. No. And when you said you saw something following me, it confirmed everything I tried to bury. She lifted her gaze toward the horizon line of the dome, but not higher. My people told stories of sky guardians, protectors that watched over families through generations. But the stories also said that if the guardian ever descended too close, it meant something was wrong, as though the balance had shifted. Ethan leaned forward slightly. Do you think what is following you is one of those guardians? Lyra closed her eyes. I do not know. I only know it has always stayed at a distance. Until now. The wind shifted, causing the lanterns to sway gently, scattering their light across the plaza like drifting fireflies. Ethan felt a subtle vibration from his wrist console, a gentle whir indicating the station above was synchronizing with surface sensors. He checked it instinctively, then frowned. One of the atmospheric scans showed a faint distortion directly above the district. Not strong enough to alert the city, but enough to raise the hair on his arms. Lyra saw his reaction. What is it? A mild reading, he said carefully, not wanting to alarm her. It might be nothing, but I think the shape is back. Her hands tightened slightly, but she steadied herself. Does it move? Not yet, Ethan answered. It is just there. Lyra inhaled slowly, grounding herself the way someone does when facing an old familiar fear. But instead of retreating, she remained seated beneath the lanterns, shoulders square. If it is watching, she said softly, then let it watch. I am tired of hiding. Ethan felt something shift in the air, subtle but unmistakable. For the first time, she was choosing to face the sky instead of avoiding it. And he stayed beside her, steady as the ground beneath her feet. The distortion above the district lingered like a faint breath pressed against the dome, invisible to the eye, but pulsing softly on Ethan's wrist console. He muted the alert before it could emit a sound, not wanting Lyra to tense more than she already had. The plaza around them stayed warm with lantern glow, but the air felt different, as though the sky itself had leaned closer. Lyra remained on the bench, gaze fixed on the horizon line rather than the heavens. Her posture was steady, but the small shifts of her fingers revealed the effort it took to hold herself still. Ethan sat beside her, angled slightly, so she never felt boxed in. If it is truly watching, she murmured, I need to understand why. Guardians do not follow without purpose. Or maybe it is protecting you, Ethan offered. You said that was part of the legends. Lyra gave a faint laugh, quiet and brittle. Protection does not usually feel like this. You do not feel watched when something protects you. You feel held. Ethan considered her words carefully. Maybe you have been carrying the fear for so long that you cannot tell the difference anymore. She looked down at her hands, palms resting open against her knees, as if listening to the memory of old stories whispered by people who never explained enough. When I was little, she said, there was a night when the storms above our valley grew stronger than usual. My mother stepped outside and looked straight at the sky. She stood still for a long time. When she came back, she told me that certain families carry a light that the sky never forgets. I asked her if that was good or bad. She paused. She never answered. Ethan watched the lantern reflections ripple across her skin. What happened after you left your world? He asked gently. Did the feeling follow immediately? Lyra nodded. On the transport vessel. When we ascended above the clouds, I felt it again. A pull. A presence. It never showed itself, but it stayed just beyond reach. I hoped distance would weaken it, but nothing changed. The distortion on Ethan's console flickered, shifting slightly toward their coordinates. Only a few meters. Small enough to be subtle, large enough to mean something was actively adjusting. Ethan steadied his breathing. Lyra, he said quietly, I think it is responding to you even now. She closed her eyes but did not shrink away. Why tonight? Ethan looked toward the dome. The faintest shimmer of refraction trembled across the glass, as if pressure changed above them. Maybe because you stopped hiding, he said. Maybe it sensed that. Lyra inhaled, slow and steady. That is what scares me most. If it reacts to me, then I am part of whatever it wants. And I do not know what that means. Her voice softened until it was barely sound. I do not want to be chosen by something I do not understand. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped loosely. You are not a choice being made by the sky. You are a person. Maybe this thing is connected to your family's history, but you still get to decide what to do with that. She looked at him, really looked, silver eyes shimmering with the weight of old fear and new possibility. And what if facing it means losing control? Ethan held her gaze without wavering. Then I will stand with you until you get it back. A quiet breeze swept through the plaza, brushing fallen leaves across the tiles. Above them, the distortion pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat, then steadied. Lyra exhaled, this time without shaking. Ethan, she said softly, you do not know what you are promising. Maybe not, he answered. But neither do you. And that is why we face it together. She let the words settle between them, warm in the cool night air. And for the first time, Lyra lifted her chin by a fraction, allowing her eyes to brush the dome's edge. Not the sky itself. Not yet. But close enough that the act meant something. Ethan saw courage in the smallest movement, and he stayed beside her, anchoring her in the quiet while the sky waited above. The next night arrived heavy with a quiet tension, the kind that settles before anything uncertain. Ethan stepped out of the transit pod near the plaza, feeling the air shift with a mild static charge. The dome above carried a faint shimmer, barely noticeable unless one looked for it. He already knew Lyra would feel it without looking. She waited near the fountain, hands folded loosely, trying to appear calm. But the lantern light revealed the small tightness in her shoulders, the way her breath paused before each inhale. Ethan approached gently. It is stronger tonight, he said. Lyra nodded, eyes fixed on the water as ripples created shifting patterns of reflected sky. I felt it the moment I stepped outside, like when a storm sits just beyond the horizon. Ethan checked his wrist console discreetly. The distortion signature was much clearer now, hovering in a precise vertical line above their location. No drift, no natural movement. It was anchoring itself directly over her. Lyra, he said softly, I think we need to understand what triggers it. Something changed recently. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and determination. I stopped hiding, she whispered. Perhaps that alone was enough. The plaza was emptier tonight, only a few late walkers passing by. Their footsteps echoed softly before fading into the distance, leaving the space almost private. Lyra stepped away from the bench, moving toward the center of the plaza where the canopy did not reach. The moment she crossed that unseen threshold, her breath hitched. Ethan moved to stand beside her, letting her know she was not facing the open sky alone. She lifted her chin, barely, just enough to feel the weight of the dome above. Her voice trembled but held steady. If it is going to come closer, I want to know what it is. I want to know why it follows me. Ethan watched her carefully. You do not have to force yourself. I have been forcing myself to hide for years, she said. This is the first time I am choosing anything different. Her words hung in the cool night air. Then the dome's surface flickered. A faint ripple spread across it, like a drop of water hitting still glass. Ethan inhaled sharply. It is responding, he whispered. Lyra's fingers curled at her sides, but she held her ground. Another shimmer appeared, more distinct this time, a soft outline forming high above them. It was not a shape with clear edges, just a presence made visible by refracted light. Like a protective veil dipping closer, curious, aware. It followed me to another world, Lyra said, almost to herself. And now it is closer than it has ever been. The presence pulsed once, a gentle wave of light, as if acknowledging her voice. Ethan stepped closer, his tone steady. It is not acting like something dangerous. It feels intentional. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the air fill her lungs slowly. I feel it too, she admitted. Not fear exactly. More like a pull. The presence dimmed, then brightened, hovering in a stillness that felt almost like waiting. Ethan glanced at her. Maybe it is waiting for you to say something. She exhaled shakily. I do not know what it wants to hear. Ethan's voice dropped to a reassuring quiet. Then start with what you want to know. Lyra looked upward, finally allowing her eyes to touch the faint glow above. Why me? She whispered. The ripple brightened in response, casting soft light across the tiles. And for the first time, the watching presence did not feel like a warning. It felt like an answer was coming. The glow above the dome steadied into a soft, rhythmic pulse, almost like a living heartbeat echoing from miles overhead. Ethan felt the quiet shift in the air, a subtle warmth brushing his skin as though the presence was acknowledging Lyra's question. Lyra stood at the center of the plaza, her silver eyes lifted higher than she had dared in years. Not fully upward, but enough for the light to touch her face. The lantern swayed gently, casting waves of color across her features. She looked fragile and brave at once, like someone stepping across a threshold she had avoided her entire life. Why me? She repeated, voice steadying. The rippling glow responded with a widening arc of faint illumination, painting a soft circle across the dome above. Ethan watched the readings on his wrist console spike gently, then settle. It is sinking, he murmured. To what? Lyra asked. Ethan hesitated. To you. The presence brightened again, not intrusive, simply matching the calm intensity of her gaze. Lyra drew a slow breath. When I was young, my mother told me our family line carried something rare. A resonance, she called it. A frequency the sky remembered. But I never understood what it meant. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to break the fragile stillness between Lyra and the light above. Maybe this is the resonance, he said softly. Maybe it has been following your lineage, not as a threat, but as a guardian. Lyra lowered her gaze briefly, processing his words. A guardian does not hide, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. Maybe it was waiting for the right moment to be seen. Another pulse swept across the dome. This time, something new happened. A crystalline hum vibrated through the plaza, faint but unmistakable, like a distant chime carried by warm wind. Lyra's breath caught, not in fear, but in recognition. I have heard that sound, she said. In stories told at night. When we were children, the elders said that if a guardian ever revealed its song, it meant someone was ready to receive the truth. Ethan felt the hair on his arms lift. Lyra, he said gently. I think it wants to communicate. The hum grew clearer, still soft, still gentle. Not a warning, more like a greeting. Lyra stepped one pace forward, standing fully in the open, with nothing between her and the dome. For the first time, she did not flinch. The presence above responded immediately, lowering its glow by a fraction, as if bowing. Ethan stared in awe. It is reacting directly to you. Lyra's eyes shimmered. My mother said the guardians followed those who carried a light inside them. Not a physical light, but something older, something remembered. Ethan studied her face, seeing the quiet radiance he had sensed since the day he first saw her. Then maybe the question is not why it follows you, he said gently, but what it sees in you. Lyra stood still, letting the hum wrap around her like a soft blanket of sound. Emotion flickered across her features, vulnerable and hopeful all at once. I spent so many years thinking this was a curse, she whispered. But what if it was trying to protect me? What if it came closer because I finally stopped running? The presence pulsed again, bright and warm. Ethan's voice lowered. Then maybe this is not a burden. Maybe it is a connection. Lyra let a breath escape, steady and full, the kind that comes after years of holding everything too tightly. Above them, the glow widened just slightly, revealing an intricate, halo-like shimmer spreading across the dome's curvature, as if something ancient was unfolding, not to frighten her, but to be understood. And in that moment, Lyra was no longer just the girl who hid from the sky. She was someone the sky had been waiting for. The halo of light above the dome softened, its glow stretching into delicate strands that shimmered like threads of dawn. The humming vibration shifted into a calmer resonance, rhythmic and steady, almost like breathing. Ethan felt it move through the air, a gentle pressure settling across the plaza. Lyra stood beneath the glow, her posture no longer tight with fear but open, as if something inside her had finally aligned with the presence above. It feels familiar, she said quietly. Not like a memory. More like something I knew before I understood words. Ethan watched the halo brighten around its edges, forming a wide circle that traced the dome's curve. It reminded him of an old solar model, a ring of energy orbiting a central point. Except this ring seemed to orbit her. Lyra, he said softly, I think it is responding to your acceptance. You stepped into the open, and it came closer without force. She lifted her face toward the glow, and the light gently intensified, illuminating her features with a warm, ethereal tone. If it is a guardian, she murmured, then this is the first time I am not hiding from it. Ethan checked his wrist console again. The distortion signature had stabilized into a perfect loop, as if whatever was above them had locked into an intentional pattern. No threat indicators. No erratic shifts. Everything about it suggested connection rather than danger. A soft breeze drifted through the plaza, carrying traces of the fountain's mist. Lyra turned slightly toward Ethan. When I was little, she said, the elders used to say the sky chose gently, not loudly. They said you would know you were chosen because the sky would follow you, but never corner you. It would wait. She paused, a breath trembling through her. I thought that meant something was wrong with me. Ethan's voice steadied her. Maybe it means something is right with you. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, letting the hum settle into her chest. When she opened them again, the halo shifted downward just a fraction, enough to cast a soft beam of diffused light through the dome. The beam touched the plaza like a spotlight, but harmless, warm, almost curious. Ethan stepped slightly to the side to see if it followed him. It did not. The beam held perfectly centered on Lyra. She exhaled, not in fear but in quiet awe. It is not looking for anyone else, she whispered. It never was. As if answering her, the halo narrowed into a single shimmering column, stretching upward into the sky. Within it, faint symbols or patterns flickered, shapes too fluid to be written language, more like impressions carried by light. Lyra reached her hand toward the beam, not touching it, but holding it close enough to feel the warmth radiating from it. The beam brightened in response, its light spreading outward in a gentle arc as if acknowledging her gesture. Ethan stood beside her, not interfering, simply anchoring her with his presence. It is showing you something, he said. Lyra nodded faintly. I think it is showing me that I was never meant to run from it. I was meant to understand it. The halo gradually softened, its brightness fading into a quiet glow, then into a faint shimmer that folded back into the night sky. The hum slowed, thinning into silence until nothing remained but the gentle sound of the plaza fountain. Lyra lowered her hand. Her shoulders eased, the tightness leaving her posture as though a weight had lifted. For the first time since he had met her, she looked up at the dome without flinching. The sky beyond was dark, calm, unthreatening. Ethan, she said softly. It was never chasing me. It was staying close because it thought I needed protection. He smiled gently. Maybe you did, but you do not need to hide anymore. She turned toward him, silver eyes reflecting the lantern light. There was no fear in them now, only peace, and something bright and human. A quiet breeze passed between them as the last trace of the Guardian's glow faded into the heavens. Lyra looked once more at the sky. For the first time, she let herself truly see it. And in the stillness that followed, the night felt as though it finally understood her.